To begin with, I think this is our group tonight. So just wanted to say hello, Linda, hello, Z, hello, Lauren, hello, Elaine, and hello, Denise. Thank you for being here tonight. And yeah, so basically the title of the reflections is the 4 right efforts. And since they do relate to unwholesome and wholesome mental states, they also in a way relate to karma. And I think I didn't do a really good job in terms of defining karma at the last time. So I wanted to go over that just very briefly in the beginning, just to review one more time the 2 aspects of karma. The first being, which was already present in India at the Buddha's time, which basically karma means action. What you do is your karma. What we do is our karma. And that understanding was already present in ancient India before the Buddha's time. And then the important key teaching, or the important aspect from the Buddhist perspective that the Buddha added, is that piece of intention. That what is our intention when we act in a certain way. So basically the definition in the Buddha's worldview becomes karma equals action with intention. And obviously there's different karmic results depending on one's action. So just briefly, I went over this also last time, but there's these 2 parts of karma that are important to understand. One is what in the ancient languages of Sanskrit and Pali is called vipaka karma, V-I-P-A-K-A karma, which are the results ripening of our actions. So whatever actions we committed, be they good or be they wholesome or unwholesome, they at some point going forward will ripen in present time. And then the karma itself is what we do with these results, how we respond to whatever is present in our lives. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a moment. And the Buddha very clearly said that how we meet this present moment determines our future karma. So whatever actions with intention we commit in this moment will impact the type of quality of life, or what, we meet in the future. And that could be short-term or long-term in terms of the ripening of the karma. So basically then we can ask, do we respond with greed or aversion, whatever we meet in the present moment? Do we give nourishment to wholesome or unwholesome states of mind? And ethics was a very important part of the Buddha's teaching, not just sitting cross-legged in meditation, but ethical behavior was very important because it's so clearly linked to one's action and to one's ripening of one's karma. So in that sense, if our lives are aligned with integrity, with ethical behavior, we will tend towards wholesome thoughts, speech, and actions. And the Buddha also really wanted us to know that karma is not our destiny, as often people think, but rather we will receive the results of our past actions, and what we do with it is basically up to us. Hold on for a minute. I'm wondering. Yeah, that's good. Hold on just a second here. So what we can do when we encounter a difficult life circumstance, we can practice with patience, humility, and acceptance in these challenging times, and thereby plant wholesome mind states, and in this way prepare the soil for our mind for the ripening of positive karma in the future. And so in that way, each moment becomes an opportunity to either transform suffering or increase a sense of self by responding with aversion. In the Buddha's scripture, it says to refrain from doing harm, to do good, to purify the mind, This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. So in essence, this means to stop yourself, or to refrain from doing harm, to do good, to purify the mind. This is the teaching of all Buddhas. So to go further, it means to stop making unwholesome karma and to begin making wholesome karma in the present moment, as best as that's within your capability at the moment. So as we all know, strong aversion can at times arise in our mind. And the most important part here is to really take in that we don't actually have to act on whatever we are triggered by. And not acting upon aversion in the mind is basically like containing a fire by not giving it any more fuel. So it eventually that way just burns out from oneself by itself. And I think we all have experienced how extremely difficult it can be to not act right away when we are very triggered in the moment. And I imagine that when we are really triggered within, the easiest way for us to just get rid of the suffering that we experience inside is just to project it out there, to just get it out of our system and boom, put it on somebody else because it's so painful. So it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice to, first of all, become aware that we are triggered and become aware of old habits of just right away reacting and putting it out there, being angry and letting somebody else know, for example. So it's quite skillful. It takes a bit of practice to really know, oh, I'm being really triggered right now. Let me see how I can be with this before I put out this karma, before I act on it. And so that's quite a practice in itself. So really, it's an opportunity to no longer follow old habits, but rather to put in effort to transform the old habits of mind. So hence, I wanted to talk about these 4 right efforts that the Buddha spoke about in the Sutra on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And the first of the right efforts is to not arouse unwholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen. I'm just going to repeat that one more time. To not arouse unwholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen. So, for example, certain things you do over and over again that you know are pulling you in the wrong direction. And the important question here to contemplate is, what are the causes and conditions for that situation to arise? So I wanted to illustrate that by putting myself out there as a personal example to sort of clarify what this first effort means, to not arouse unwholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen. So I'm going to share something personal about my little studio here that I live in on my own. And usually Z comes to visit on the weekends. And I can become, and Z can definitely testify to that, I can become extremely controlling about my living space. When Z comes over here, where he places their personal items, when they cook, how they might be placing things around in the kitchen. And I just have this need that things need to be a certain way. Their personal belongings should be placed in a certain way, all of those things. So at some point, by reflecting on that, I realized that the causes for this behavior are actually fear in me and a need for safety, for things to be a certain way, because when I was a child, my mother's behavior was never predictable and I never felt safe around her. So what I started doing just very recently, actually, is just beginning to shift a little bit for me, is to, prior to Z coming over, I have begun to just simply practice self-compassion, so that whatever scared part in myself feels soothed, and the fear and the related controlling behaviors don't have to arise. So just attending to myself and recognizing that this fear or this sense of safety might get shaken. I attend to that prior, so it doesn't need to arise in the first place and doesn't need to lead to these controlling behaviors in the first place. So I thought that that was a pretty good example to just highlight this first effort of not arousing unwholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen. And then the second of the 4 right efforts is to recognize the unwholesome states that have arisen. So to recognize the unwholesome states that have arisen. And I think some of us at least can relate to this, that we can feel justified even about feeling unwholesome aversions, such as anger, upset, or worry about what's happening in the world, for example, such as climate change, racism, the threat to our democracy. And so we can feel justified even in wishing harm upon maybe certain politicians or groups of people who have a different worldview and who we feel might be a threat to our democracy coming to an end. However, it's really important as a practitioner, I think really any spiritual practitioner, but also a Buddhist practitioner, to know that wishing harm is not aligned with the Buddha's teaching. Very important to remember that. And then also when the unwholesome state of, so there's the unwholesome state of aversion, and then there's also the unwholesome state of greed. And when that is present, there can often be a story of why it's important to have what we want, because when greed is present, wanting basically is out of control and can be quite limitless. So again, I wanted to give a personal example in terms of the greed that can arise and just letting, just flowing with the greed and letting it spin out of control. So on Thursday, I usually go to the People's Market in OB, the co-op, and where I usually pick up a goodie, like some cookies or, a couple of slices of cake, because after I come back from the beach and go to the co-op, I like to visit with my friend Cynthia, that a few of you know in this group. And I always bring over a goodie for her, for both of us, that we have, in a shared tea time. And I like to go to the co-op because they have so many wholesome food items, and I myself am actually allergic to eating white sugar. It gives me quite a bit of joint pain and other physical pain pretty much right away when I eat it. However, there are not always items in the bakery deli that are free from white sugar. And it's very easy for me to tell myself a story. Oh, what harm is one time going to do? I'm just going to pick up these cookies. They look so yummy, and Cynthia is going to really appreciate them. And so then we eat them. And pretty much what happens after that is that I just, it's not like I'm going on a binge, but then it feels like, okay, the next time if they don't have the cookies without the white sugar, oh, what's the harm? I'm going to get them again. So I can really get myself in the pattern of repeating that over and over again. And soon enough, I'm pretty much aching all over my body from the allergies of the white sugar in the body. So when we become aware that an unwholesome state of greed or aversion has arisen, we can then reflect for a moment and recognize that there can be a different way, that we actually have the opportunity to drop the unwholesome mind state and the actions that tend to accompany them. We can bring the intention to drop because it creates suffering in ourselves and doesn't benefit anyone else either. Well, one could at least say, well, probably Cynthia still benefited from the cookies, but you know what I mean. So, and if we're not able to drop it yet, though, we can at least practice noticing wanting or not wanting. and then try not to act upon it. And the nun was telling us on the retreat that she finds that there are two powerful ways or aids in stopping old habits. One is taking a conscious breath, and maybe more than one breath when you're really triggered and want to act upon the unwholesome. And the other is to really feel our feet on the ground. And so it's probably helpful, I imagine, because it just brings us out of our head and into our body, and just being with the breath, or feeling the feet on the ground, or feeling the buttocks on the cushion, or if we're standing, just feeling the body. I imagine it's helpful for that reason, because it takes us out of the mind, out of the triggered mind, and back into the body, into the present moment, back into reality from the trigger. However, I just wanted to also say that we still would have to be really aware in that moment that we are really triggered, and that our old habit would be to lash out, or to just project our anger or aversion or greed and act on it. So before we can remember taking a conscious breath or feeling our feet on the ground, we would first of all have to be aware that we're actually triggered and that we're acting on old habits. So it takes quite a bit of skill as a practitioner to really be aware of all those things in order to change them. And then the third of the right efforts is to actively cultivate wholesome states of mind. So some of the wholesome states of mind that I came up with for this talk is generosity, loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, patience, gratitude, understanding, care. And I was thinking that it also takes a lot of patience just to develop towards us, loving kindness towards us, that, there's a reason why there are old habits in the first place that lead to unwholesome states of mind, that we were probably harmed in some way at an earlier age, and just act upon those hurts out of anger or fear. So when we're not able to change the behavior, or restrain ourselves from acting upon them, I think it also takes a lot of patience with ourselves, a lot of love towards ourselves, to not then, beat ourselves up for not having been able to not project the unwholesome behaviors or thoughts out onto someone else or in the community. So I think that's also really important, patience for ourselves and loving kindness for ourselves when we're not quite able yet to not act in unskillful ways. To just remembering that it's a process, it's a practice that we might have to practice 1,000 times or more before we can eventually change the behavior or change the action. So how can we cultivate wholesome states of mind in a challenging situation? So perhaps we can think of a scenario where we would immediately go to aversion and act out of that aversion. And we can begin diminishing unwholesome states by becoming aware of our usual aversive reactions, like I've already said, such as anger, impatience. And we can feel the aversion arising and recognize that we don't actually have to act out the aversion. I just wanted to really highlight that one more time, to really know we don't actually have to act on them. And we can practice overriding the aversion and think, speak, and or do something opposite that. And just a couple of days ago, I actually remembered when I was in my yoga teacher training that the Yoga Sutras actually have this particular practice as part of yoga as well, which is called Pratipaksha Bhavana, which the definition of is we discontinue negative ways of thinking through the discipline of cultivating the opposite. So when we're dedicated to cultivating wholesome states, we can always find opportunities everywhere. And so wanted to challenge you for this week to see if you can look for opportunities to cultivate wholesome states on a daily basis, because I think there's infinite opportunities for us to cultivate wholesome states of mind each and every day. And then last but not least, the fourth right effort is that once a wholesome state has arisen, to take care and maintain that wholesome state. I'm just going to say it one more time. Once a wholesome state has arisen, take care and maintain the wholesome state. And I was thinking that practicing the four Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity are excellent ways of maintaining wholesome states of mind. And I think I mentioned to you at some point a few months ago that in my daily meditation practice, for a few minutes at the end, I make sure to practice some rounds of loving kindness for myself and other beings, and really for all beings in the world. And I think that's a beautiful way of maintaining wholesome states, or maintaining wholesome thoughts that lead to wholesome actions in the world. And we can also begin each meditation with an intention to incline the mind towards what's uplifting, inspiring. That's another example of maintaining wholesome states of mind in oneself, to incline the mind towards what is uplifting and inspiring. And perhaps you can just take a moment, as you know, we're coming to the end of the talk, what might be ways for you to help you maintain wholesome states of mind? And as you're maybe just contemplating that for a moment, just allow an opportunity for silence and letting the words settle. Just checking in with ourselves for a moment. Maybe taking a breath and feeling the feet on the ground. And I'm going to leave it up to Z to decide intuitively what may be best to come next, be it the movement or coming right into the sit, just leaving it up to them.
Thank you. I think we'll move a little bit, but we'll stay seated. And if you're already in a nice meditation and you want to stay there, just stay. Just stay with your meditation. If you're meditating and you want to continue, or I'll offer just a few minutes of movement. And if you feel like you want to stand up, that's fine too. We've been sitting a while. So let's just bring the hands onto the shoulders with the fingers pointing down. And we'll make big circles with the elbows. Inhaling as we open and exhaling as the shoulders come down. Coordinate it with your breath. Take big breaths and slow movement. And then the other way. And relax. relax the hands down. If you're sitting, your hands can just come onto your lap, maybe wrapped around your knees. If you're standing, bend your knees and bring your hands onto your thighs. And then we'll just round the back as we exhale, dropping the chin. And then inhale. If your hands are on your knees, you can pull them toward you and let the chest come up. And if you're standing, you just kind of bring your heart forward and take your eyes up. Good. And then we'll just go back and forth, moving with the rhythm of the breath. One more. Beautiful. Then we'll take the left arm up, bend the elbow and bring the hand onto the upper back, and bring the right hand onto the elbow and press down. And breathe up into your heart. And exhale, relax and press down. And then bring the arms up and bend the right elbow, bringing the hand onto the upper back, hand on top of the elbow, and press down. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. See if there's a letting go that happens not just with the breath as you exhale, but in as much of the body as possible, really relaxing with each exhale. And then inhale the arms up. Exhale the hands behind your back. Clasp your hands together. Reach the arms back and lift the hands up as high as possible, folding the shoulder blades in toward each other. And then inhale, lift the chin. Exhale, drop the chin. And then continue like that, maybe keeping the eyes closed and tracing the trajectory of the breath inside your body with your awareness. And then on your next inhale, release the arms, bring them back up. And then wrap the arms around you, giving yourself a nice hug, and walk the hands toward each other in the back. And then just let your head relax down. And feel yourself breathing into your palms. See if you can really embrace yourself with love here. And then notice which arm is on top of the other. And then inhale and open the arms out. And then switch the other arm on top, wrapping the arms around you, walking the hands toward each other in the back. And again, feeling the breath as though you're breathing into your hands. Maybe sending some love to yourself. And then on your next inhale, open the arms out. And then release the arms down. If you're standing, come to sitting. Taking whatever posture works for you for meditation. Lying down is also a great posture. And just letting the eyes close if that feels comfortable to you. And just seeing what it's like initially to go from movement into stillness. Kind of like shaking up a snow globe and then just letting it all settle. Takes a moment. You might focus on the feeling of your buttocks or your back, whatever's touching the chair or the sofa or the cushion. And just feeling it releasing down with gravity. Feeling the bones nice and heavy. Sinking. Letting the muscles give way for the bones to melt down into what's supporting you. And see if you feel supported. If you can really let yourself be held. Really, the practice of right effort is just about how do I support myself? How do I support having a life infused with wholesome karma? So there's so many ways that we can feel support and practice support. And we can use an anchor as a support for our mindfulness. So the anchor is just something that you intend to be present for, something that tethers you to the present. And it could be helpful to use the breath because the breath is always there. but it's not always helpful for some people. Sometimes watching the breath causes us to control the breath, and we're really not looking to control, but rather just be with. So if that's true for you, you might find an anchor in your hands and the sensations there, or the feet, or the buttocks sitting. See what feels most supportive to you now. And even if you're used to using one anchor, maybe in this moment, a different one would feel more supportive. Such a beautiful question to let guide our life. What's most supportive right now? And we'll take a few moments just to let the mind settle in with the anchor. And really, the anchor kind of serves as the bass line in a piece of music. It's not the entirety of the music, because we know that other things will come into our awareness. And that's okay. The mind is spacious enough to focus on the anchor, but also receive whatever else may appear. So, for instance, can you feel your anchor and hear the sound of my voice? Can you feel your anchor and also feel your feet? Can you feel your anchor and notice when a thought arises? Now, if you get lost in thought, you may forget about your anchor, and at some point, you'll remember again. Great. And can you feel your anchor and also feel what mood might be present? Is there a sense of curiosity, boredom, fatigue, irritability, delight? What is the flavor of the mind? There might be hindrances like ill will, greed, restlessness, tiredness, doubt. And then we can practice with right effort. When an unwholesome mind state arises, we can become aware of it. Maybe notice it to the extent that you understand it. So you don't need to just push it away immediately as an aversive reaction, but notice it. See that it's arisen and maybe see why it's arisen. Like, oh yeah, I'm restless because my body's not comfortable. Okay, what would support me right now in letting go of that unwholesome mind state of restlessness? I could move my body. Great. Not out of an aversion, like, oh, I'm not comfortable, so I'm going to move because I really need to be comfortable all the time. No, that would support my mindfulness in this moment. Great. And so maybe we can just practice for the rest of this time being aware of whether mind states arise that are wholesome or unwholesome. And when a mind state arises that's wholesome, what would support holding on to that mind state, allowing it to persist? Not with greed, with equanimity. And what would support letting go of unwholesome mind states and even preventing them from arising? Just paying close enough attention to the heart so that you feel into those subtleties, those fluctuations, because they're happening all the time. Especially when we settle down and we're still. Sometimes that's when past karma begins to ripen. And then we have the opportunity, as Bettina said, to create wholesome karma in this moment and how we deal with it. Every moment is that choice of how to face what's arising in the most wholesome way. First and foremost, not beating ourselves up for whatever arises, for receiving it with a friendly awareness and meeting it with that curiosity. What supports me in this moment? wholesome karma we have generated here with our practice ripen in this lifetime and be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Thank you for your practice.
I guess I should speak since I'm unmuted. I just realized. I apologize about that. I'm trying to really contemplate just even the first line, rest and unrest derive from illusion. Attachment to liking and disliking ceases with enlightenment. So I guess it's the unrest and the rest and the unrest, or the unrest that's being stirred by the attachment of wanting it to be a certain way, the wanting and the not wanting. That's what causes the unrest. And as soon as we can detach from the liking or the disliking, there's going to be rest. Is that what's implied here? Can somebody help?
I was reading it as rest meaning being okay with, unrest being not okay with. So it would then track with liking and disliking. It would be the duality again that our illusions create, our attachment, or all dualities come from ignorant inference. I'm inferring and I'm being wrong about it, ignorant about it, uninformed about it. Well, it says right here, it's foolish to try to grasp them. So, hey, we do not have to figure this out. I think that's not the meaning there. Well, I'll let someone else take a run at it, but that's how I came to see it, to make it track, to make the two lines track, that rest and unrest are being okay and at peace with how things are, as opposed to being not okay, not at peace with how things are.
I think that what it is trying to say is that dualities are an illusion, that that when one is enlightened, they cease to see the world in terms of likes and dislikes, which is huge. I mean, I can't imagine how wonderful it would be maybe for like 5 minutes to not see things in terms of likes and dislikes. But and I don't think that I don't think that it's saying, oh, then life will be boring and empty and horrible. I think what it is saying is that um, uh, that once you're in enlightenment, those dualities no longer exist. And you don't see the world that way, which means you see the world in a completely different way than, and I think we get little glimpses of it, like, when Z, you were lying on the grass and you suddenly let go of that idea of the didgeridoo guy coming over you. It's like you had that moment of little flash of enlightenment, like it doesn't matter if this person comes over me, and there was no duality. Why not me, or why me, or is he coming, is he not coming, any of that thing. So it is a really, I think it would just be such a beautiful way to live, to be in the world. And I can remember, I think I used this example before, when I was in India. One of the younger people that was in India, but probably younger than me, but far more enlightened than me, maybe somebody that had kind of a relatively normal life before, prior to coming into Buddhism, but maybe not. But anyway, said, gee, what if we just stopped using the terms I like and I don't like that, because when I went to India, because everything was new to me, I mean, my whole life became, I like this. I like this. I like this. Oh, I like this so much. I like this. And he said, what if we didn't see life in terms of likes and dislikes? And though I heard him, I really now hear him. I really now hear what he's speaking about. And I really do try not to use the term, I like your shoes, I like your hair, I like your whatever. Or of course, I don't often say I don't like something to somebody else, because I'm very much of a people pleaser. So that would not, work for me. But I don't mean to put myself down in this, but I just mean to say that it is interesting to become aware of not living in the world of likes and dislikes. And yet I think we see not doing that as living in kind of la la land, where it's the opposite way, probably, is that living in an enlightened mind is very freeing. And it doesn't mean that you don't like or dislike things. It just means that you don't have to verbalize it or say it or think it, I think. So anyway.
I'm just going to say what interests me about this is this kind of the whole thing oriented toward illusion, dreams, phantoms, hallucinations. Like, that's different. Usually we'll hear like rest and run and rest derived from delusion. But this is a different spin. This is illusion. Different. So seeing something that isn't there, or not seeing something that is there. So the ignorant inference is like that. Like, this whole idea of this illusory world, and this like phantoms and hallucinations, just to kind of get a sense of how I like that, actually, like to that reminder that it's a hallucination. It's not real. And even though delusion says that in its own way, there's something different about this languaging that feels really helpful. Like you're caught in a fantasy when you think that there's dualities, when you make inferences from things that there are no inferences from. And I don't know, it just seems extra helpful to me. Like if everything is a phantom, it's foolish to try to grasp it. It's just you know, it's not there. So I think that could be really helpful to me if I can remember it. It's always about remembering it, right?
You know, you talk about remembering and these insights we get and then the difficulty in remembering, but I was in the middle of my work day today and for some reason it just dawned on me, an interaction with a patient, how different things could be if I let go of things being not the way I want them to be. I always have a lot of ease of interaction with patients, especially in the hospital. You know, there was a large part of my work there is persuasion. And I never really had a problem with things not being the way I want them to be in a treatment, but now there's this big push, like we're not seeing enough people. So we're supposed to see more people. And I just, I'm talking about intention and right effort. I just really want to maintain that because, you know, these are the same interactions, the same people, you know, they're different people, but, you know, this is my same job I've had prior to this push. So really, I think my job is just to not lose that. I'm looking at, I don't know, maybe it seems tangential, but I'm just thinking, you know, to me, like the duality and it's gain and loss, it's all about like things not being the way I want them to be. And yeah, it's interesting. And just, I don't know, Lauren, the way you're talking about how refreshing it would be, you know, just, I don't know, it's kind of just so appealing to just go in and say, I'm going to let things be whatever they are, whether it's not going in a way that favors my productivity or whether it does. I mean, it's not my problem. Anyway, there's something, it's going to be an ongoing struggle, but yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
I wanted to add, oops, that was the ghost, the phantom.
Yeah.
It snuck in here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good. I do want to say though that this teaching is a teaching, as far as I can tell, of the ultimate level of reality, you know, and sort of the all enlightened space. And I feel like what you're talking about, Elaine, is really more happening on the, I guess they call it the relative realm of reality. And I could really relate to what you're saying in the sense of my years of working in human services. And one of the reasons that it really took me away from that field ultimately was that it became less about the humane and it became more about the outcomes and the paperwork and whatever else that's not really related to that. So I feel like your intentions to let go of the disliking and the liking is really, really wonderful. And I feel at the same time, it's still important to stay connected with your own heart in terms of what brought you to the job that you chose for yourself and the values that you have around it. And I feel like that's also really important to stay connected with. Yes, it's really great to be not doing wanting and not wanting, but I feel like it's also really important to stay connected with your heart. And it's just something that came to me now. It's maybe not related to this teaching, obviously, but I felt called to share it in this moment. So yeah. Yeah, this seems like a good time to close. However, if somebody wants to, you know, just say one last thing about this particular paragraph, if something really feels to be want to be said before we do the closing, you know, we do have 4 minutes, so yeah.
It's interesting. Can you hear me?
No, we can't
Can you,
hear you, Lauren.
can you
I think
unmute me?
somehow the devas came back into your house and they don't want you to speak right now somehow. I'm really sorry. You might have to speak just to them and verbalize it to the devas in your house. Really sorry about that. I don't know.
It's
I'm so
peculiar.
glad that you could join us in the second hour.
Oh, wait,
I can hear.
I can hear.
Oh,
I see now can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes, okay, okay. So I wanted to comment on something that you were saying, Elaine, which, I kind of went through this whole thing. I didn't know you then, but I got fired from a job. And it was an interesting thing because it is a job that I had for a long time, but we were on completely different pages in terms of what my supervisor thought I should be doing, what I felt like I should be doing. And the one thing is, if I wasn't so verbal about it, I probably would have gotten away with it for another 14 years. But the point of it is that one of the most valuable things that I think that we do with people when we're working with them as therapists is meeting them where they are in the moment. And that's what you're talking about when you're not thinking about productivity and all that stuff in terms of algorithms, and let them catch up to you. Fine. So they catch up with you one day. Maybe it'll be just very shortly before you're ready to retire or something like that, but do it, but that is to me the most valuable gift that you can give another person is to meet them in the moment and and be yourself and not what somebody else is telling you you should do. And yes, they can measure all this stuff now, they can measure anything now. They measure all this stuff that's really, they can't measure the unmeasurable, which is what we're actually giving. and that's okay. Let them catch up to you or whatever. And the world will go on, and you'll find some other place that values you. But yes, it is two different realities. But in a sense, I think the gift that you give as a therapist to another person is your presence in the moment. And that doesn't change no matter what kind of therapist you are or who you're working for. They may not like it, but that's okay. I that's all I could say. Yeah.
Wow, thank you all for your wisdom, your truth, your hearts. It can be so helpful just to realize that we all struggle, and what matters is how we show up for it. And I hear so much from all of you tonight, especially, but always, how beneficial the practice is. So maybe we can just take a moment silently together and just feel our gratitude for all the causes and conditions that brought us to the Dharma and have given us a means for navigating the struggles that life invariably brings us. So if you'll join me, totally optional, I put in the chat, I thought maybe we could recite together the 3 refuges and just articulate what I'm hearing already spoken, if you are comfortable with that. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Thank you, dear Sangha.